Striving for continuous improvement is one of the keys to success in the cattle business. Those producers looking to maximize profits are always searching for new techniques and technologies that can make cattle grow faster with fewer inputs. Growth implants have a long history of use within the cattle industry, but Brian Baxter reports there are some new options for producers to consider.
No matter what part of the country they're located in, one of the common goals for all stocker producers is to efficiently add gain to their cattle throughout the entire grazing season. And one of the key ways to get the most pounds of gain from their available forage is by using a growth implant.
Implants are important to beef producers just from a sheer production standpoint. Ultimately, producers are selling pounds of beef, whether they're selling a weaned calf or whether they're selling a stocker calf directly to a feedlot. They get paid on pounds. And so implants date back to the 1950s. They've definitely evolved over time and new products available, but ultimately an implant tells the muscle cell grow larger. And when the muscles grow larger on these animals, they're able to sell more total pounds, which adds up to more dollars in their pocket.
As a nutritionist for Zoetis, Dr. Brian Bernhard spends a lot of time looking at calves and talking with cattle producers. His aim is to help producers make the best use of production tools like growth implants.
Well, you just think about the competitive landscape of agriculture in general and specifically, the cattle business. It's ultra competitive, operating on very small margins. So anything we can do to, help find a dollar here or a dollar there ultimately helps their profitability and helps their sustainability in the business. So Zoetis is a company that is continually trying to innovate, come up with new technologies, come up with new products to improve animal health, to improve production of animals. And so one of those newer technologies is an implant technology that's called Synovex One Grass. And really the uniqueness of this product versus other implants that are available on the market is that it's a long-acting implant, and so it has a label to last up to 200 days.
Dr. Bernhard says the longer duration is a result of the unique way the Synovex One Grass implant is designed.
So the unique part about Synovex One Grass is this patented coating technology that it has around it. So imagine you have a traditional implant pellet, and it's coated with a physical barrier. I like to explain it, it's like you wrap the implant pellet with a thin sponge. Sponges are porous in nature, so when you put this implant into the animal's ear, it's a higher dose product, but when you put it in there on day one, it actually gets a controlled release. So instead of getting an immediate release of a high dose of hormone and then a reduction over time, you actually get more of a consistent release over that 200-day period.
To continue building knowledge about the longer duration growth implants, Zoetis conducted a trial to see how these growth implants performed with stocker cattle in a grazing situation.
Recently, Zoetis conducted a new trial with Synovex One Grass just to try to better understand how it can be used for producers. And so we did a study in Central California on the western coast with 518 steers. So in this study, we did have 3 treatments. So treatment number 1 would have been what we called our control, a non-implanted group, so they did not receive an implant. Treatment number 2, they would have been implanted with Revlar G, which is traditionally considered a more conventional or shorter duration implant. And then treatment number 3 would have been implanted with Synovex One Grass, which is the longer duration implant that we've been discussing today. After the cattle had grazed for 192 days, the results were quite impressive. Ultimately, implanting really pays. And so both of the treatments that received an implant had an average of over 50-pound weight advantage versus the cattle that did not receive an implant. So the value is really there for producers that are grazing cattle to utilize implants because that technology really has a large return on investment. When you look specifically to the 2 treatments that received either Revlar G or Synovex One Grass, the cattle that were implanted with Synovex One Grass had an average of an 11-pound weight advantage.
In fact, Dr. Bernhard says multiple studies over the past few years have demonstrated the value of growth implants.
It's part of our continuing investment in research with this product. Actually, in 2016, we conducted a study in Oklahoma, which we compared Synovex 1 grass to Encore and Revlar G. And in that study, we actually had an average of a 20-pound weight advantage with Synovex 1 grass versus the other treatments.
Dr. Bernhard says the research is clear. If a producer may end up stretching out the number of days their cattle are grazing and growing, then a long-duration implant provides a real advantage.
The length and time in which you're going to own the cattle definitely plays into what type of implant product you want to use. And I like to think about it more of days of ownership, not just days of grazing. Synovex 1 grass has been a great fit for stockers and backgrounders. Really, any producer that utilizes forage as part of their management system and owns the cattle for 140 or more days should consider this as an option. I work with many customers that gather cattle in the fall of the year, say September, October. They're putting groups together that will ultimately be turned out on some type of winter forage, say in December. So this has been a great product for them that as they're gathering cattle, they can process them, they can use Synovex 1 grass as their implant, yet they get duration all the way through March if they come off winter forage early, or even some that go through graze out into May, they're still covered. And so I like to think about days of ownership. How long are you going to have those cattle? Whether it's when they're weighing or shipping cattle, they see the added pounds that it's putting on their cattle, and ultimately that adds more dollars into their pocket.
And more dollars in the pocket is always welcome. In West Texas, I'm Brian Baxter reporting for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
Dr. Bernhard adds that it's best not to go into grazing season without an implant plan. Working with your veterinarian, your nutritionist, or a Zoetis representative can get you on the right path. For more information on Synovex and how growth implants can deliver value in your operation, visit the website nostresssynovex.com.